This is the old Atascosa County Jail. It dates back to 1915. You can still see the bars on the second floor windows where the inmates were held. 48 years ago, this is where Sheriff David Soward first started with Atascosa County. Now, as he's about to retire, he talks about those 48 years of memories that began at this historic building.
I seized that from a guy who had a mobile methamphetamine lab when I was on patrol. So in the late 80s, he got convicted and got life in prison, or 99 years in prison, and went off to prison. And the court, we filed on that rifle, and the court awarded the rifle to Atascosa County. And one thing I did is I went and had that put on the barrel.
Yeah.
Somebody said, well, why did you do that? I said, well, 50 years from now, somebody walking out with this thing.
Yeah, it belongs to the, belongs to the county,
right?
right?
To that county.
Yeah. Sheriff David Soward, 48 years with Atascosa County, including 12 as sheriff. What are your thoughts as you sit here today with, just a few more days left in your tenure?
Well, it's hard to believe that it's coming to an end. For years and years, I just worked and never thought about the end of my career and when I would leave. And now reality is hitting me, and that it's when I decided not to run for re-election, and that my term is going to be up, and it's going to be the end of my law enforcement career. But it's been a great career, a really good career, and I'm happy with it, and not a lot of regrets. And so I'm ready. I'm ready to retire.
48 years is a long time to spend anywhere. Did you ever think you'd spend 48 years with the Atascosa County Sheriff's Department?
I've been asked that question before. I don't know if I've ever thought of it that way, but thinking about it now is no. It's hard to believe that to stay there 48 years. Things happen, and different people are involved and make decisions that affect you. And fortunately, I was blessed. I worked for Sheriff Tommy Williams for 36 years, and that's the only boss I ever had here at work. So that was a good thing, and it worked out good for me.
Given any thought to what it's going to feel like when you walk out that door for the last time?
Yeah, I have. I know it's going to be strange. It'll probably be emotional. I'm going to miss the people I work with the most. I've got some great people, as I told you earlier, working for me. People that make me look good at what I do. And I always told them that. I said, y'all make me look good, and keep it up. And a couple of things: just always do what's right, always be honest about it, and you'll probably come out okay in the end. And I'm gonna miss working with everybody. I'm gonna miss some of the public, and I said some of the public, but most of the public I will miss, and I'm gonna miss picking up the phone and helping people when they call, because I've been doing that for 48 years, solving their problems, whether it's a minor problem, the dog knocking over the trash can, somebody bashed their mailbox, all the way up to murder and serious crimes. Been able to help people and successfully help people with the assistance of my coworkers, and I'm going to miss that the most.
This much more than a job to you?
Oh, absolutely. It's a passion.
How about the people you work with?
As I said, great people. I over the years, you might have people come through that don't pan out the way you want them to pan out, and they're here and then they're gone. But the majority of them are solid. They're hard workers. They got to be honest. They have to be honest. Number one, I won't tolerate dishonesty. They have to have integrity. And most of the people I have now, or all the people I have now that I know of, are that way.
Yeah.
And it's, as I said, it makes my job easier, and they're great. They're I love them to death.
Like a family?
Absolutely, yes.
I was struck by the fact that just the few deputies that I met of yours are all from Atascosa County. I mean, these aren't people that just work here.
That's correct. And my upper staff, they're basically 90% of them are from Atascosa County, and so when you're able to hire people that are from here, went to high school here, live here, they have family here, they know what they do reflects on this community and making this community a better place for their families to live. And it's important when you can get people that are from here to work and stay here, and not just anybody, good people. And like I said, I have a lot of people that are from here, and some of my patrol deputies were born and raised in Atascosa County, and I have others that have come here from other areas because they want to work here, and they heard good things or whatever the case might be, and they came here to work. And so it's a mixture, and I have a great staff of support staff of ladies working here in the front office and jail, my jail administrator and his staff, and they all do good work, and it's hard work, Steve. It's very difficult work, and a lot of times mistakes are not tolerated. So you can't make mistakes. You try to do everything you can from making a mistake.
Yeah. When you think back to the 48 years you've been here, the 12 years as sheriff, how has that job changed? How has the job of sheriff changed in your time in Atascosa County?
Well, when I went to work as a deputy for Sheriff Williams, this is 1980, when I went out on patrol. I went to work in 77, but in 1980 when I went out on patrol, there was 7 of us deputies for the whole county. And the sheriff, he was out. He would go show up at just about every call, every major call. He was definitely there, and some not, because there was 7 of us. And and that evolves over the years to where you get more people, and to where sheriff maybe doesn't go out to every call because he has qualified people to handle that. And I still, to this day, I'll still show up at calls, and not every one of them, but if I think I need to be there or if I can offer something, then I'm going to go, and I'll be in the middle of it. I was in the middle of one here just last month, and if something happens between now and December 31st, I might be in the middle of that one because, as far as I'm concerned, I'm sheriff to the end of my term, and there's no coasting. I'm not going to coast. I've never coasted.
Yeah.
So we'll stay at it.
Yeah. So do you have more regulations? Do you have more, obligations than maybe you would have had if you were sheriff 48 years ago when you started?
Unquestionably, there's so many mandated procedures and laws and things you have to follow nowadays, and you have to, I have people that just stay on top of that, and we have to do this by this date. We have to do this by this date. We have to file these reports quarterly for the state. The state's real good about issuing unfunded mandates, and which we have to do. We have to answer to that and complete those mandates and reports and training. Training is just it's crazy now. What all the training requirements you have to do, and it's not that it's bad, and it's not bad at all. Training is good. It's just there's so much of it. There's so much of it, and then you have an agency where you're a little bit smaller. Sometimes you can't afford to be missing people for a week going off to training, so you have to work through those things, and it's just busier. It's busier times, and I'm it's a lot of difference than it was even 12 years ago when I started. But, I'm not wanting to paint a bad picture of being sheriff, because it's not. It's just, it gets more stressful as time goes by.
Yeah.
And maybe that influences me to decide not to run for re-election and to retire. That's maybe one of the reasons. But another one is I'm getting older, just like everybody else. And people ask me and said, "You've been here 48 years?" And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not as old as I look. I started when I was 12." So, but time catches up with you, and I always wanted to go out on my terms, where I felt I was still, at the top of my game, but more importantly, go out on my terms, and I think that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. When you look at your county, I mean, first of all, it's a growing county. I mean, you said you're at 55,000.
We're around 52,000 right now.
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah. What was it when you started?
I'm going to say 32, 33,000, 34, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Is there a big issue that comes with that growth?
Yeah, the more people you get in the county, the more calls you're going to have, the more crime you're going to have, the more issues that come up. And a lot of the people that move into Atascosa County are good law-abiding citizens. But then you have a portion that are not. Some people say, we're getting out of, I'm going to pick on San Antonio. We're getting out of San Antonio to get away from influence on our kids, a bad influence on our kids. So, well, they come down here and the kids are away from that influence, but they do the same thing. They're still breaking the law. So it's you have both. You have the good and you have a little bit of the bad, and the more people you cram into a room, it's the more trouble you're going to have.
Is there one crime issue that concerns you more than any other as you leave?
It's drugs and what the drugs do. I mean, of course, we've had lots of murders because of drugs, lots of burglaries, lots of thefts because of drugs. But we also see the drug-induced mental illness, where people may have been on methamphetamine for a long time, and now or some other narcotics, and now their mind is messed up. Mm-hmm. Too many brain cells have been damaged.
Yeah.
And those are the things. Those things concern me. We've never been what I would say a high crime county for homicides. We'll average 3 or 4 a year that we work. There's been a couple times it's been a little higher, and a couple times it's been a little lower. But there's always burglaries and thefts, and most of those are related to narcotics. They're stealing to support their narcotic habit, and so we put a lot of effort into narcotics and enforcement of it. And the other concern I have is school safety. I've made school safety my number one priority, and we do a lot of things. And a lot of them I'm not even going to talk about on the air because. But we're at the schools more than anybody realizes. And all these schools are in the cities where they have police departments, but we're there.
Yeah.
We're there. We're doing things. We're providing extra support to our partners in law enforcement, all in the interest of school safety. And the last thing I ever want to see in Atascosa County is something bad happen at a school. Because, I feel like as sheriff, I need to do every single thing I can to prevent that. And that's what I stress to my people and my upper management is we're going to do what we can. It might not prevent something, but we're going to do what we can.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no problem. When you look back over your career, there are 1 or 2 cases that stick with you, that stay in your memory?
Sure. In 2012, less than a month before I was elected sheriff, we had a man killed, ex-county commissioner, well-known, well-respected, well-liked individual that was murdered by a guy that had been in an incident in Bexar County and took some shots at people and fled, and he had a little crash down here between Pleasanton and Lemming. This man left his house going to work and stopped to help the guy and see if he needed help, and it ended up costing him his life. It was one of the most senseless murders I've ever seen. And I had taken the day off that day to do a little campaigning, and of course I ditched that and went to the scene, and we organized and we looked for the murder suspect for 2 days. Even went into San Antonio because we thought he was there. And then we finally realized, you know what, he's not. I don't think he got away. So we organized another search with helicopters and horsebacks and riders and four-wheelers, and we found him. He was down in a creek bed in some thick brush where he had shot himself, and but he was so concealed by the terrain that it just, you couldn't find him. And just to the fact that how senseless that murder was, and that the victim was my boss's nephew, and seeing how tore up he was, as many people were, I'll never forget that. We had a job to do. We were going to find that guy and bring him to justice, but he took his life before we could arrest him. But that case is, I think about it all the time. And then probably the worst day of my career is October 12th, 1999. Two deputies responding to a fake 911 call were ambushed and murdered, getting out of their vehicles about a minute and a half apart. The second officer that got there, of course, saw the patrol car of the first officer, but he didn't know he was laying on the other side of the car dead. And he was shot and ambushed. Then 18 minutes later, a trooper arrives to check on him, and he is shot and killed as he pulls up. And fortunately, the next officer that arrived, a Pleasanton police officer, Louis Tudyk, thank God he stopped further back at the intersection to assess the situation. And then he become under fire and was wounded in the arm, and an off-duty officer that responded that lived nearby was wounded. And there was a gentleman from Pleasanton that had a ranch out there, and he drove into the fire and pulled those two wounded officers out. And his truck was shot up. His truck had 20 bullet holes in it from a high-powered rifle. And he never flinched. He drove right in there and getting shot at the whole time, got those guys in his back seat and got him out of there. His name was Wendell Munson. He's passed away since. But you don't run across a lot of heroes in your lifetime. But in this field you do, whether it be law enforcement or in this particular case, it was Mr. Munson. And the death of those two deputies and that trooper was absolutely the worst day. They left behind 3, 6, 7 or 8 children without a father, 3 wives without a husband, and then parents without their kids, and so on, siblings without their brother or So it was terrible. Coincidentally, 2 of those widows work for me today. They have managed to make it through all that and come back, and they're employed with me today. And it's great to have them here, but you never forget about their sacrifice.
How do you deal with that as a person, as a human? How do you deal with those 2 incidents that you just talked about, the losing people that you know, and then a county commissioner that you certainly knew?
I guess it's we always recommend now that you go get psychological help, and that's a great thing. But we never did that. You just build up this callus where you're hurting, and you might break down later, but you're going to deal with the problem. And it was the most difficult problem to deal with that day and the following weeks. And how you get through it, I don't know. You just have to do your job, and people are depending on you to do your job. And it's probably eating on you inside, yeah, but you just continue to do what you got to do, and you somehow get through it. By the grace of God, you get through it, and you think about what happened to them, the sacrifice they made, the families losing their husbands. That's the worst thing, not how it makes me feel. Mm-hmm. That's the worst thing. I feel bad for the people left behind. I feel bad for those 3 guys, and I want to do everything I can to help them. And if I don't maintain composure and my wits and mind about it all, then I can't help them.
Yeah. You still are involved. I know you still reach out every time this particular individual, who I'm not going to name his name, in 1999 comes up for parole. You still ask people to write letters, and you're still very involved in that case.
Absolutely. He's coming up for parole every 2 years, so we start a campaign every 2 years before that, and we've gotten anywhere from 500 to 1,500 letters sent in. I write one. A lot of other people write individual letters. He was convicted by a jury in another county on a change of venue and sentenced to death. But his death penalty, the case was overturned because they said, well, he's not the trigger man. Trigger man died at the scene. And so he's not the trigger man, so he can't get the death penalty. And so he ended up pleading for 30 years, I believe it was, or 35 years in prison. And by golly, he needs to stay there and spend his time in prison. And that's what I believe, and that's what the people of this community believe. There's going to come a day probably when he gets out that we can't do anything about it anymore. But as long as we can do something about it, we will.
Yeah. Any regrets?
I probably have regrets. I mean, maybe there was things I handled one way and I should have handled it another way. Because you're human, you make mistakes, and you got to learn from your mistakes. I mean, nothing's just. I should have thought about that ahead of time, because nothing's really popping into my head right now about regrets. But I just wish I could undo some of the things that had happened during my career, and of course, you can't do that. But you always wish you could.
Yeah. Final question for you. When people think of Sheriff David Soward, how do you want them to think? What do you want to be remembered as? How do you want to be remembered? What's your legacy?
I want to be remembered as a law and order sheriff that did his job and had his people do their job and serve their community with pride and integrity and honesty. And it's never just about me. It's a we here. It's me and all my employees that do this. And I just want people to remember what we did. We tried to do the best job we can. And, there's just no BS in it. You go out, we're gonna do the right thing. And we're going to try to catch the bad guy, and we're going to try to put the bad guy in jail, and we're going to try to build the best case we can and turn it over to the prosecutor and hope that the court system does what they should do. And You know, that's pretty much it. I'm here to serve the people of Atascosa County until the last day of my term, and that's what I want people to remember.
No skating.
No skating.
Sheriff, that's all the questions I have. Anything else you want to add? Anything else we need to talk about?
Steve, I'll probably think of something when you leave.
Yeah.